What's going on, guys? So I want to make a video on Bollinger Bands. I think that this is going to be especially important for new traders just starting out, or for beginner traders, because this is really going to give you an idea as to when stocks are really extended or really oversold or really overbought. But this Bollinger Band indicator essentially is going to tell you when stocks are hitting extremes, um, and they're basically due for a correction. Now, I'd also recommend to use Bollinger Bands as a beginner. As you get a little bit more experience, you really don't need them. But I also think you may want to use the volume weighted average price along with the Bollinger Bands, especially when you're starting out. I think that would be two good indicators that kind of help you know your entries and exits, and things like that. So if you don't know what volume weighted average price is, go to my playlist under instructional videos. You'll find a video on the VWAP or volume weighted average price, and that can kind of help you learn about it so you know exactly why you're using it. So if you use TD Ameritrade Thinkorswim, I'm going to show you exactly how you can set up your screen or set up your Bollinger Bands. So you want to go over to Edit Studies, go into Edit Studies, kind of similar to putting on the VWAP. But you're going to go up here into your search bar, type in Bollinger Bands, double click, and now you'll have it right here. Now it will present three bands, a middle line, lower, and upper band. We don't really need to use the middle band, or personally I don't like to use it, so I'm going to explain it in my purposes for not using the middle line. So if you take away the middle line, you just have to go over here and unclick it so you don't show it. Now I'm going to change the color of mine to yellow personally. You can change into whatever color you like. You don't have to have them the same color as mine. I just like yellow. Click apply and hit OK. And now you see my Bollinger Bands, these yellow lines. So let's talk about this for a second, or let's just use this stock because this is a great example. Now, this isn't going to happen every day when you're trading a stock, but having them on your screen is a really good idea for letting you know when stocks are really extended and they're due for a correction. So, for example, this is stock TRXC. Today, it just kind of, it opened up, it just kind of consolidated sideways, and then it started picking up a little bit of momentum, right? And then we just soared all the way up. And as you can see, this final candle, I'm on a 1 minute chart, this final candle just completely broke through the Bollinger Bands and was trading all the way up to about 70 or 67 cents. So this thing was over the Bollinger Bands quite a far amount. It was really high above it. And what do you know? The next candle is a huge red candle that brings it back down with inside the Bollinger Bands. So whenever you're trading and you see a stock just completely rip up and just exceed your upper Bollinger Band, by a pretty good amount, even this here could, trigger some sell-off to get it back within the trading zone here. But when you see a candle like this and you're up here, me personally, I would say that's a good time to, take your profits and run, because there's a good probability that you're going to get a high sell-off or a big sell-off just like this, or shorts coming into play, because people who like to short sell say, holy crap, this thing is really high above its Bollinger Bands. It's super extended way too far. It should probably be brought back down to earth. And sure enough, here you see it drop back down and it start trading back with inside its Bollinger Bands. And now, I personally feel that having the volume weighted average price to signify when you're getting a volume weighted average price breakout along with your Bollinger Bands are really two good indicators, because if you do happen to catch a VWAP breakout and your stock shoots up, you can play it all the way until you start exceeding or getting really close to those Bollinger Bands, and then you can take your profits in a run and wait for the stock to sell off and then come back down somewhere to your VWAP and then maybe get a VWAP bounce back. Now, this isn't a good example for a VWAP pullback or a VWAP breakout for the most part. This is just for an example on what happens when a price gets really extended over the Bollinger Bands. I don't think so. That was one example when you're on a bullish uptrend, then you break the Bollinger Bands on the top side. Now I'm going to go over to Snapchat stock, and today I'll give you a good example of when a stock was way oversold and it just skyrocketed back up. Okay, so if we go into right here, you'll notice, I mean, it doesn't look like it completely sold off on this far zoomed in, but if I zoom out, you see this thing just completely tanked all day. Yeah, it rode the Bollinger Bands, and so eventually it kind of bottomed out, right? We bottomed out, and now we're really oversold. The white line on my chart right here, the white line is the volume weighted average price. So we get this huge sell-off. It's really riding the Bollinger Bands all the way down, and then it's finally selling right within them, and now we start to get an uptrend. Now for me, a good entry point, or actually a really good entry point, would be right here on the stock. Obviously, when it moves, that's a good entry point. But the reason it's a really good entry point, let me zoom out and then zoom back in, is the fact that when you got up here, you finally broke back above the volume weighted average price, which is my white line, and then you just skyrocket up. So there's a couple things here, right? Once the stock rose again, the red line's a 50-day moving average. It started treating that 50-day moving average as support all the way up until we finally popped through the 50-day moving average. Then we broke the 200-day moving average. That's a definite bullish signal, and I would have got in to go long. And now, as you can see, the stock rises above the Bollinger Bands, and in a matter of time, it just shoots up right above the Bollinger Bands. Now we're trading above it, trading above it, trading above it, all the way up here. We're trading way outside the Bollinger Bands, and eventually it comes back for a correction. Okay, so that's a good indicator to have on your screen, especially your value weighted average price along with your Bollinger Bands, because you could catch a VWAP breakout, ride it all the way up, and then when it gets really extended over the Bollinger Bands, you could say, hey, it's probably a good time to sell, take my profits, because there's a good chance it's going to start coming back down to earth, which it just did right here. Now, sure enough, you start trading inside the Bollinger Bands again. And here's another thing, just to kind of give you a tip on the volume weighted average price. Eventually, the stock does sell down, and look what happens. In my other video, if you're not familiar with it, go check it out. I go over the VWAP, and I go into detail, and I really do stress the fact that the volume weighted average price in a day, intraday charting, intraday, day trading, stock trading, the VWAP acts as intraday support and resistance. So look what happens once you sell above the VWAP, which is the white line. It eventually comes down and treats the volume weighted average price as a really strong support. It touches here, touches really close there, trades down, not touching it but close to it, and so as you can see, it kind of just rides that VWAP all day long. Then we start trading up, and we're not going to get into that area, but as you can see, or here's another example, right? Stock trades up, breaks through the Bollinger Bands, and then it comes right back down. So you can ride these things up, and there's still some other, practice it's going to take to realize when a stock is going to start coming down. But Bollinger Bands are a really easy way to know when stocks are really overextended. Like here it was overextended, and then you got a little bit of sell-off, brought it back in, then it just rode up, and here was really extended. There may be some other things like resistance points. There was probably, a previous resistance point right around that $18. So that $18, I mean, yeah, that right there. It's right here, right where it sold off recently. You had some resistance right there. So regardless of that, I hope that helps you guys. I'm pretty sure it will, especially for you new beginners. I would recommend putting on the Bollinger Bands. You see it here? You see how the price has got way overextended over the Bollinger Bands, and then it drops back down and starts trading within, the average weighted price. That makes sense, right? You sell up extremely, or you buy up extremely, the stock goes up extremely, gets over its Bollinger Bands, time for a correction, comes back down with inside a normal average price playing zone, and now the stock just kind of trades sideways. Yeah, so if you miss the move, you miss the move. So be it. There's going to be stocks to play all the time. So if you're beginners, I think that checking out my volume weighted average price video and watching this one will give you a pretty good idea of how to, get into stocks and maybe when to sell off if stocks are getting really overextended. Or a really good time to buy is when a stock breaks through its Bollinger Bands. It's usually time for a reversal to come back up and start playing back within the zone a little bit. So with that being said, I always recap each video with telling people, if you're not already a part of the TechBud Solutions group on Facebook, please go there. It's a super good platform to be a part of, especially if you're a new trader. There's tons of information flow. You can always get your questions answered by somebody in the chat. There's always people on there willing to help out, commenting on posts and helping out new traders and people just starting out on this trading journey. I have a link to my Facebook. I'm always posting some stuff on Facebook for new trade ideas and whatnot. So if you'd like, send me a friend request. I'm always accepting friend requests. And other than that, guys, happy trading and good luck to you all.